pit stop strategies from Ferrari lately or something. What's going on?
In turn one, just too much gas on them, too much feet on the down pedal, and unfortunately he's dropped him all the way down the order. But Philip Hammer is out in front by an 8.91 seconds. Dan Michael is a wall there, sir. And definitely doesn't want to be hitting that earlier on as well.
Difficult, the understeer is in the dirty air through that final corner because it's such a long corner and you get dragged off into the grass very easily. He'll have the slipstream down it towards the chicane. Peterson was briefly alongside, but that slipstream has saved him and kept him in third.
Yeah, Varani now lost a little bit of time to Aberdeen, about half a second. Peterson is Pike's pushed Morton forward up ahead. He's got out of line. Is now Pike going to have a go at Werrell? Don't push him off. He's in the championship fight. Jack Werrell chasing down Carl Jacklin. Further down, Rob Williams and Chris Barnes.
Sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly. Miller's still start trouble. He's left on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Moving on to the back end of Phil Jocelyn. So there's been a lot of movers and shakers in this first 2 laps here for race.
Absolutely serious racing league. Everybody's allowed to have fun. Yeah, and
It's all about the entertainment, so I hope
everybody is enjoying themselves out there in the chat. We know that Ron is been enjoying himself watching.
Dear.
And Burger King machine's off into the grass a little bit there. Is that really bunching up now?
Coming down.
Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it.
They're going to toss it. They haven't got it. He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly. Miller's still start trouble. He's left on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it. Big Barry!
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to PRL. It's Season 12, Round 2 in Tier 2 this time. Last night, we had a fantastic race around Spain. Tonight, we wonder if the Tier 2 guys have a similar event. I mean, it was a dramatic race with APSA. There was loads going on. The late safety cars, wet to dry drama it was going on. But tonight, like I said, Tier 2 are having their go around Spain. We'll have to see if they can have as much excitement as we saw yesterday in the 33 laps. My name is Darragh. Thacker. Joining me once again in the commentary booth is GM Joshua, Griffin, Meek, and Josh. Good evening.
Yes.
We had such a good race last night, didn't we? But I'm really hoping we get some more of the same tonight.
Yeah, to be absolutely honest with you, Darragh, I'm 100% still recovering. I'm still thinking about what on earth went on strategy-wise. You know, the weather really just played a massive curveball, let alone the safety cars as well. So here's hoping for a slightly drier race so we can have a bit more traditional racing around the circuit at Catalunya. And, you know, I say that. I'm not the biggest fan of this new layout. I mentioned it yesterday. I'll mention it again today. Not a fan. Bring back the old chicane. Make it a little bit clunky. That's what I miss.
Yeah, because I if anything, I think the change they should have made is I do think they should have got rid of that chicane, but they should have kept the hairpin at turn 10 rather than making that a long sweeping left-hander. Well, the hairpin, because taking the hairpin away kind of took away the overtaking opportunity. So I don't really know why they changed that bit as well as the final. But anyway, as it is, we have got more of a MotoGP circuit from about 10-15 years ago. I think there was that great battle. I think it's Valentino Rossi won the race.
Yes.
But it's one of the greatest MotoGP battles of all time, final lap, and they were going at it through the final corner. But we're back on that layout. We'll have to see what they can do. Of course, lap times have shortened, haven't they? Quite significantly, about 5-6 seconds.
I mean, it's been a massive drop-off in lap time. I mean, it's a given, right? You make a couple of corners a bit quicker. You just get rid of some hard braking zones as well. But with a quicker lap time, there's less braking zones, less chance to maybe recharge a bit about ERS. So it's going to play a pivotal part in this race. And I'm sure, especially even during the qualifying as well, making sure that if they end up having a mistake, that they're able to kind of just thread the line a little bit with a little bit of brag draking here and there. So if they do have to abandon a lap time, whether it's down to track limits or another car obstructing them, they'll be able to recharge the battery, hopefully, in time to be able to get another flying lap underway. But just to give everyone a little bit of insight here, we do have everyone in the lobby, and we are just waiting for the thumbs up and the go-ahead to get started. But I feel like it's only fair that we also mention what happened last week around Imola, and we've got the championship standings on the screen now as well. And, you know, it's not been any less chaotic, has it? It's been a fantastic couple of weeks here at PRL, and I feel like the Imola race really gave us something to work with here.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it here, I mean, of course, we've got MZ Plays on top, Finbop and Rapid in tow, but there's still got a few guys there who maybe didn't have the best of starts to the season. We'll have to see how they progress through the field. Of course, we've got loads of points scorers with points for qualifying. I think we've got 13 people who have already got points in round 1. So there is always that opportunity for guys to progress their way forward to make points even in the qualifying session. But it's going to be interesting to see if the likes of MZ and Finbop can try and push on here, because I mean the gap between Finbop and Rapid is 10 points, and already if you can start to widen that a little bit more, it creates a bit of a two-horse race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly going to be a little bit interesting as well. But I am noticing, as we are loading into the lobby at this moment in time, we've got a couple big hitters who aren't here today. I believe they might have been bumped up to Tier 1 after last week's performance. So there's still an awful lot to play with. I mean, as you mentioned, looking forward across, you know, the points in the qualifying. It's a change. Compared to a lot of other leagues, they actually reward good qualifying. And I made note of it yesterday a little bit. It certainly adds a different dynamic to this championship, where it's not all just down to race pace. If you're one of those which kind of struggles, like I did back in the day, I used to be a bit of a qualifying merchant, spent too long in time trial, according to my team manager. But just having that capability where you can score a small handful of points and then still look forward to advancing the race, it really gives them a little bit more confidence and something to work with heading forward from that qualifying into the race segment. And it's a beautiful little play. But something which isn't beautiful is going to be this weather, Darragh.
Yeah, it's been plaguing us. I'm going to have to say as well, I was doing I did a 50% race myself a couple of hours ago at Abu Dhabi, and the race was fully wet.
In Abu Dhabi?
Abu Dhabi, exactly. So we're getting plagued by rain here. I don't know if it's me, but there is rain absolutely everywhere. But you're right about being, rewarding for qualifying. I mean, myself, I've been the opposite, really. I'm better in the races, albeit in that race I did a couple of hours ago. Qualified down in P7, so I had some work to do. Then I effectively took myself out on lap 1. But from coming out of the pit lane after fixing my front wing on lap 1, I was about 27 seconds behind the leader.
I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it?
By the end of the race, there was no safety car intervention. 27 seconds at the end of lap 1. By the end of the race, 22 behind the leader. So I actually had better pace than the leader, but it shows you don't always have to be qualifying high to get a good result. You can try and work your way through the field, but we've got a few guys on outlaps, and it's going to be just Komi-san. I think it's going to be first out. But we've got a full grid, haven't we, Josh? It's fantastic.
It's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. Seeing the amount of passionate drivers who want to come and want to participate. Once again, I will mention that if you're watching over on the Twitch, feel free, click that little Discord button. If you're watching over on YouTube as well, try get yourself involved. Hop on over and find out if you're, if you're up to this standard, because we do have some very, very quick drivers here. I feel like we should mention the McLaren duo from last week as well, CJ and Craggy. They might not have got the best result out of it, but you certainly saw in the qualifying segment around Imola. They had an ample worth of pace. And realistically, it's just going to be a story of how are they able to transfer that pace into more reliable points and building that level of consistency, as we've mentioned before, to try and push themselves slightly further up in the standings and maybe even challenge for this championship here in Tier 2.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to think about constructors as well. These guys will definitely want to take home all the trophies they can, really, and we'll have to see who comes out with that one and who can try and position themselves best in these opening couple of rounds. But here we go, just Komi-san starting his opening lap time. Of course, with short qualifying, it means that there's less scope for the track to dry out during the qualifying session, but we'll have to see if it's going to dry out. If it does dry out for the race, I mean, you've got that debate whether you go for a bit of a dry set, full dry setup, whether you put a little bit more wing on to help you in qualifying.
It's a tough one. It really is, Darragh. I feel like having that little bit of extra wing in the qualifying, it can't hurt you in the race. Yes, you might be a little draggier on the straight, it might be a little easier to overtake you, and you might have to deploy a little bit more ERS. But you've got to kind of negate that thought with your tyres are going to last a little bit longer. You'll be a lot quicker through this TV set free area. Heading up to the corners 7, 8, and then as well 9, you'd be able to take that a little bit more comfortable. Not putting as much pressure on the tyres, not leaning in as much on them, because that aero is keeping you grounded slightly better than what it would for those who are more solely relying on that tyre grip. So there's a lot to work with, and there's loads of different ways the drivers can go around strategy and setup here. Especially if we end up seeing mixed conditions again. But Komi-san here is approaching turn 12 there with a slight lift. You can already see just being slightly tedious of this track in the condition. The first couple laps out aren't going to be the ones we're going to be keeping an eye out for. We're going to have to keep an eye out for the likes of, I do believe that is Patty Pat, just heading into turn 10 now. Because realistically, that's where the drivers are going to be looking to try and improve on their lap times. Just by having a couple cars in front, kick off a little bit of that water.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll have to see how these guys go. I mean, opening laps, intermediates, you can go for a couple of consecutive laps, of course, and we'll have to see how that all towards the line. He sets a time to near the top of the time sheets. No, not quite. 23.1 is what he's got so far, and CJQ just in behind him has set a 22.5 with Nobby setting a 22.6. But at the moment, just Komi-san, he really is looking like he's setting the pace here. I mean, 2 seconds clear of Patty Pat, same conditions. Is the track getting a little bit wetter, maybe?
Perhaps. I mean, we're certainly going to be able to see when we get a couple more of these drivers coming across the line. Let's keep an eye on Craggies. As we mentioned, he's had a good bit of pace around Imola. Is he going to be able to transfer it to Catalunya? That's the big question. You can see that red light flashing. Don't worry, it's not indicating a low battery level. That's just the rain light to make sure that if there is a lot of spray, it is clearly stated that the cars can see one another through the spray. And it's a beautiful little invention, but it can get a tad bit confusing. You will have to keep an eye out for those little red lights on the wing to indicate the low battery in these wet conditions. But you can already see Craggy here, right up back behind Patty Pat, and Patty Pat is in a destined mood to set in another lap here, isn't he?
He really is. But I think that's the thing you can do in the wet conditions. You can do a couple of consecutive lap times. The problem here, That's a big slide through turn 10, and Craggy slips up the inside, and that did not look comfortable at all for the Alpine. Maybe a dry setup. That could suggest that we possibly have a dry race, but at the same time, might just be a loss of traction. Let's see, though, Craggy through the final corner. So much more speed, of course, than it was before the track was remodeled, and straight up into P2 for the McLaren driver. A few tenths off just Komi-san as Halo retires in the pit lane, I do believe. Oh, no, in the final corner. Then maybe he might have hit the pit wall there. We saw it yesterday, didn't we? Near the end of the race, one of the Ferraris crashed out right at the end.
Absolutely. I mean, it's certainly one of those things where you just gotta have to keep an eye out for it, and just have that consciously in the back of your mind, being aware that it can be quite a difficult pit entry to exit given these conditions. It's off a racing line. It's not often a well-used part of the track. I believe the only other part of the track which uses it for actual racing purposes would be the Rallycross, I do believe. Using that to try and get a bit of rubber laid down on it. So you got to think, if drivers are coming in off full race pace laps, yes, they're putting down a little bit of rubber, but you've got to think, a couple of the other cars, they're not necessarily taking them out at full speed, they're not putting down the most amount of rubber on that certain part of the track, and it could certainly be something that we've got to keep an eye on, especially if, they're pushing these intermediate tyres to new levels, building the temperatures up in them. They can very easily overheat if you're not cooling them down using a bit of the water, and I believe that's what Alberto might have just discovered there, heading up through turn 9 there, taking it a bit wide, running into the gravel. Perhaps his tyres are struggling just that little bit.
It's always so difficult just to judge the conditions, generally when there's rain falling on the circuit, like you said with the tyre, but also with the lines you need to take, and the lines you want to take, because it may change everything. Sorry about that if I cut out for a second there. But looking at the time as Alberto goes P12, just Komi-san, he's flirting with a soft tyre here. Could we see it dry up by the end of qualifying? It seems like the rain has got very, very light. And the dry line does seem to be forming a little bit more. Could we see some dry running by the end of this qualifying session?
Surely not. Look, it's still raining, Darragh. No way. No way. I know we had a couple people running out of hairdryers on the track yesterday to make sure it was dry for the end of the race, but I don't see that one happening again today. We paid him a lot of money to run on to make sure the track surface was dry at the end of a race, and we can't exactly afford that one here today. But we will make special note of the Sauber car there, hopping up into P1, Rapid OG of the Xbox platform, putting in a 120.9, showing there's still a little bit of time to be gained on that intermediate tyre as well. Might just give Komi-san just that little bit of food for thought to maybe duck it back out on another set of inters and give it another go. But of course, we've got Rapid Gopher coming up to the line now with a 122.4, and that slots him nicely there into P10. We've got a couple more drivers coming across the line there. We've got Craggy's hopping up there, once again beating Komi-san's lap time. Perhaps it might not all be, Komi-san might want to reevaluate putting on that soft tyre compound and maybe go out and give it another go on a set of intermediates just to make sure that they are in that little safe bubble, which they so desperately want. Because as we mentioned yesterday, the run down to turn 1, it's massive.
It's long, isn't it? And you can often see 3-4 wide in the background, so drivers are going to have to be aware of that, going to have thinking about that. Here's Mornster, though, in his Mercedes car. Oh, that's very wide on the penultimate corner. And yeah, diving into the pit lane wasn't going to be improving on that lap. Patty Pat, though, still the 23... Can he find time? Let's see. Up towards the line he flies in his Alpine. Find time 21.8, but only good enough for P9. So he's half the way back up the field, but he needs to find another nearly second from provisional pole, showing just how good those times from Craggy and Komi-san have been so far.
Absolutely, been almost dominating lap times as Rapid OG is about to come up and start yet another flying lap, and you can see that red light flashing there, still showing it's wet, but you can slowly start to see that little greased line forming, can't you, on the racing line? That little bit of shininess indicating that there's not as much rain coming down, and these intermediates are clearing the water at a rate of knots.
Yeah, and that's the question. Is it still raining here? I'm not too sure if it is still raining. It is looking like it's pretty close. And no, it looks like it stopped,
looks like
doesn't
it stopped, yeah.
So this could be a case of whoever's last on track might pick up pole position here.
Maybe. The reason I say maybe there is because there's a lot which could be gained or lost through this, right? You got to think, if drivers are currently out on their intermediate laps and the track isn't rubbered in, perhaps they could still find that little bit more grip. Yes, they might have to take slightly different lines through the corners to make sure they keep the tyres cool. But again, we saw yesterday as well, it can be very tricky to fire up the tyres, to get them in the temperature window, to really be able to start pushing on a lap. And if they're only having that one out lap, it gives them just not really enough time to get those soft tyres fired up. But of course, this all depends on how quickly the track dries up, because we can already see this dry racing line starting to form. If it ends up drying up in a miraculous amount of time, we could start seeing these soft tyres really give the intermediates a run for their money.
And it's something we saw yesterday, wasn't it, where it did start to dry relatively quickly, the track. I mean, we were talking about whether some guys were going for the dry tyre when it was still raining, but by the end of the safety car, it was the right call. So we will have to see here whether or not this is going to make a difference. Let's see, though. Mythbusters coming around. No one's been brave enough to go out yet for a bit of a go on that soft tyre. They're all sitting in the pit lane. But
we've got 7 minutes.
Yeah. It's in that stage, isn't it, where you can often look at the tyre compound and flick between them, and it often updates the time difference between the tyre compound, doesn't it? So that might be what they're doing, just to see if it's getting quicker or not.
Yeah, of
but
course.
we see Nobby's invalidated, he'll have to go again. But a lot of drivers in the pit lane, I think they're just kind of waiting to see whether they're going to have to go out onto an Inter at the end or a slick.
I don't blame him. If I was one of these drivers, I'd maybe take Crew Steamer's approach and just go out on a set of intermediate tyres. You've got 7 minutes left. That's enough for 2 runs easily around here, as we've seen Nobby there trying to do his best Tokyo Drift impression down into turn 1. Unfortunately, that's not how you're going to be able to find the lap time. But of course, you got to mention, if the intermediates are still having those slip-ups occasionally, you got to think maybe soft tyres aren't a shout for the time being, as you see Oliver there hopping up into P1 with a 120.2, clearly showing that this track is improving.
Yeah, it definitely is. You can absolutely see where the track is dry, where it's starting to come into its bit. This is where it's going to start to be difficult to do concurrent intermediate lap times. You're using more ERS, the tyres are getting warmer, so it's going to start to get a little bit more difficult. We've only actually got, I think, 2 drivers who are actually on flying laps. They make that 3 as Poloski, I think, has just come across the line, but Crazy is one of them in his Williams car. Lost drivers now looking at the soft tyre. I mean, I really do think it's going to be a case of whoever starts their lap last is going to be on pole, whether that is an Inter or a slick, because regardless, the track is drying. It's just whether it's enough for slicks. Crazy's 4.5 tenths up here. It's not even clear whether he's pushing or not, but he might even be able to pick up P2 minimum, if not a provisional pole here.
Yeah, of course. You can see him taking that alternate karting line coming through turn 9 there. Just taking it nice and wide, making sure he gets the tyres cooled down to make sure he's able to properly push it through these final corners. You see he leaves a load of space on the exit there. So he's already got up to a 120.6, but you've got to think there is still time to find there just by pushing the car maybe past its limit just a little bit, maybe having a little bit of rear slide just for a couple of corners to help with the rotation as well. But of course, you know, at this point, you know, if you stay out on the intermediates, you could be looking at potentially losing a soft tyre run. But if you go out on the softs, you could potentially be looking at losing out an intermediate run. It's a bit of give and a bit of take. But we do have Chaos Druid in the YouTube chat there saying, I hope we got no rain for tomorrow's race. We've got form here. Well, the last 2 tiers here, mate, have been something. It looks like it might be a wet race for tier 3 tomorrow. But of course, it'll certainly be interesting, regardless of what happens. I mean, last night was a prime example. A wet race just means it's a little bit more chaotic.
Yeah, just a little bit crazy, really. But it is nicer when you can see the weather's dry, a little bit more comfortable, kind of know what you're going to be getting. Yeah, you're just a little bit more confident with what you're going to be doing. Let's see how these drivers go. No one is out on a slick tyre yet. I don't think it's dry enough, but you can start to... You can see that the tyres are starting to leave. It's much more than it was at the start of this qualifying session, and very soon a dry line is going to start to come into play. But CJQ starting next flying lap in the McLaren, and this is going to surely put him in front couple of rows. I think it was Poloski jumping up to... Oh, it wasn't Poloski. Who was it? There was an Alpine. It was Collateral Zoom, sorry. Jumping up to P4, and there... in the Red Bull, even faster, 19.9 now. And I mean, the track, it's really, really getting much quicker now.
You know, at this point, if I was a Dom War or a Shane Muck, you know, you might as well go on that soft tyre. Give it a couple laps to warm up. Don't deploy your battery on your first technical hot lap. I'll just say keep it in reserve, make sure you don't turn the ERS on, just keep it under control, make sure you get that temperature in the tyre, because to me it looks like there could still be a little bit more grip to be found here if you were on a soft compound of tyre. But of course you've got to think, with less cars going out on the track running these intermediate tyres, perhaps it's given a little opportunity for a bit of that rain to dissipate across the circuit and maybe kind of mess up that little grease line we see forming, because to me it seems like that shine's kind of lost its shimmer.
Yeah, it has really, isn't it? So we will have to see what these guys do. I think a lot of the drivers are now committed to an intermediate tyre. There aren't many left in the pit lane. I mean, the likes of Rapid go for a Mythbus. They're both still currently selected on a soft tyre.
And there we
As
go.
CJQ goes fastest, but 19 I mean, the pace advantage now is incredible. It's a second and a half quicker than it was at the start of the session. It's intermediate alone. Here comes Collateral Zoom. He goes to P3, nearly into the 19s himself. I mean, is anyone going to be brave enough to go onto the softs? They've really got to make a decision soon.
I mean, yeah, you've got 2 minutes. This is the time you've got to start coming out the pit lane, especially if you are going to go for that soft tyre, to make sure you can get it up to temperature. But so far, it looks like they're still waiting, nice and stern in their garage, making sure they leave it until the very last possible minute. But questions have to be answered. And we've got an answer. We've got a soft tyre out on track. Of course, it'll be Shane, PRL Shane, in that Scuderia Ferrari, taking the escape road, having a slight incident heading down into turn 1. It's not looking like a promising sign, but of course we do have the likes of Patty Pat, Mythbusters, and Rapid Gopher also coming out on that soft tyre. Could this be a stroke of genius from them?
Well, it's either going to be a stroke of genius or a big mistake. I think it's fair to say, quite frankly, they're either going to be the top 4 or the bottom 4. And they might be a little bit in between, but we'll have to see. They've got to be careful, though, of course, letting other drivers through, but also trying to keep to the time. 1 minute 19 left. You're looking realistically at that Williams coming down to turn 1 being the theoretical line. Anything behind that is going to meet the flag time it crosses the start-finish line. So you don't want to fall behind that Williams, because otherwise you're not going to get your lap time in. Seeing the final runs begin. Still 50 seconds on the clock. The likes of Donwell, they've got time to find, but it's really anyone's game here.
Absolutely, but you can already count a couple of people out. CJ won't be able to improve his lap time. He's dived into the pit, and Monster as well. So they won't be able to find any lap time improvement. But of course, we will have to keep an eye on the rest of these drivers, as we've got Beast moving up there into P2 with a 19.8. This track is getting quicker and quicker and drier by the second here. I'm certainly going to keep an eye out for anything that these drivers are going to be able to pull out, such as Craggy there over 119.6. And you've got to think as well, if these drivers maybe haven't deployed all their battery over the course of 1 lap, they could still go again.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what I was saying about the last grabs across the line could really be at an advantage here. Donwell was nearly 2 seconds here. 8 seconds left to go on the timer. I think Patty Pat may have accidentally blocked coming into the final couple of corners, realising that he might not get line in time, and in fact, it has not done. So those guys are now done. These are the final runs, and we've got to be looking at Rapid OG soon, because he's going to be the last driver to cross the line. But Donwell first up. He's going to cross the line. What's his time? Comes to a 19.9. Times are going to start to come down fast. Nobby can't improve, but there is a raft of drivers behind who are raring to gain some positions.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be keeping an eye on Cruz Steamers here. I've got a little bit of data up. He seems to be going and absolutely flying at the minute, but of course we still have other drivers, and one of the next ones to come across the line here will be Alfredo here. He's already a 10th up, sorry, 0.7 up, almost a whole second on his lap time. But how far is he going to be able to jump up the standings? Surely he'll be looking to creep into that top 10. If not, maybe get himself towards the top 6. And he comes across the line here, and he just finds himself a little bit short there in P11. But we've got a couple more drivers here looking to improve on their lap times. And I do believe Shane is going to be one of them, but he's off.
He is off, but this is where we're going to see... sorry if I cut him, I think it might
No
cut out. But the Hasses, they are nowhere near improving.
Oh dear. Maybe that soft compound tyre wasn't the right call
They
after
are
all.
nowhere near going to be able to take pole. Just Komi-san looks... Internet, it's really doing my head in as much as it's doing yours. There we go, Rapid OG. Jumps up to P4. It's not quite enough, though. Just Komi-san. He's taken pole by half a second. I mean, it's incredible. He really has some good pace in this wet condition. Maybe he's put a little bit more wing on the car. We'll have to see if it works in the race if it's dry.
Yep, certainly. Got a little clarification there from Chaos Druid in the YouTube chat saying on Craggy's behalf they have form. So the PLR team looking and hoping for a bit of dry weather for the Craggies to really be able to try and challenge it and, push it forward onto the likes of Komi-san, because you've got to consider being 5 tenths up in qualifying, that's not a normal gap we would see, is it? So you got to maybe consider, were they using perhaps slightly higher wings in these wet conditions just to make sure they can get the track position?
I mean, that is going to be a question, I think, for these guys. They're going to have to be thinking about. But here are the results. It's just Komi-san, who is on pole position in the AlphaTauri, but it's then a Scottish trio hunting him down. Craggy, CJQ, and Rapid OG. They're not going to let him get away easily. But the two McLaren second and third. The two Alfa Romeos fourth and sixth, with Donwell just in behind Beast on the third row. Oliver Sequeira in P7 with Collateral Zoom in the Alpine in P8. Cruz Steamers and Crazy round out the top 10 with Poloski, Alfredo, and Alberto in the top 13. Rapid Gophers 14th with Missbuster in 15th. The two Hasses further back than they'd want to be with Patty Pat in P16 and Shane 17th. Monster, Nobby and Halo are going to round off the grid. But, Josh, I mean, 33 laps are coming, whether it be wet or dry. Just Komi-san initially looks to have a bit of a pace advantage here.
Yes, certainly. He looks like he could be one of the drivers to beat in a race. But as I mentioned before, that McLaren duo, we saw it around Imola. They were on form. They were quick. They showed pace in the qualifying. But when it came to the race, got caught up in a couple instances and couldn't necessarily get the best out of their position on track. And kind of fell down the order. So it'll certainly be something to watch them try and mount a comeback. But we can see here, the track does look pretty dry to me.
Lovely and sunny, isn't it? I wish it was like that here in the UK.
Don't even. I've been freezing all day long, Darragh.
Yeah. It's not been the nice of weather. I'm not going to enjoy watching the Bahrain Grand Prix at the weekend and see everyone in short sleeves and going, oh god, it's so hot here. But no, I'm slightly jealous of the dry weather and the nice sunny hot weather that we see here in Spain. But I think the drivers are going to be pleased. They know what they're going to get. They've done their strategies before around here. They're going to have to try and pull their way in front some way or another. But it's going to be a long run, as we said, down towards turn one. Who's going to get the best start? But just kind of best seat in the house for it. Just have to see if he can start to pull away or whether he'll start to fall back into the clutches of the others.
Absolutely. He's just going to make sure he gets a nice, solid getaway from the line, as I do believe we have the formation lap this week. Thankfully, none of those beautiful features we love so much interfering anymore. But we can already see a strong difference between the entire grid on tyre compounds. We've got roughly about half on the soft, half on the medium, but then of course we do have Patty Pat and Shane towards the back of the field, choosing that hard compound tyre, looking to stretch out that first stint, try and maybe battle for a bit of track position, and then of course swap it over to that soft tyre for the last couple laps of a race. Certainly, I mean, they couldn't really read much into last night, could they? Even those who participated, like the likes of Cruise Steamers, who showed up to compete at the Tier 1. You got to think, maybe that could be played on their mind. Maybe they might be anticipating a safety car, hence the reason why they would have gone for slightly softer compound of tyres in comparison to the likes of Patty Pat and Shane.
You'll have to see. I'm surprised we've got so many soft compound tyres, really, because it's not something we'd normally see around here. I'd have thought a hard medium hard be the best strategy. Maybe they're going to try a soft medium, maybe a two-stop, maybe start raining towards the end of the race and they're trying to get a tyre to get there. But it does seem very sunny for now. It'd be disappointing if it started to cloud over quite a bit. But with the top 6 on the softs, then the next mediums, that next group of 4, they're going to really want to get through on the medium runners as quickly as they can.
Yeah, you've got to think as well, with such a long run down into turn 1, they get the better start on that soft compounded tyre, they get more traction, they get more grit coming off the start line. You've surely got to think that they could be looking at maybe making 1 or 2 moves heading down into turn 1. And then at that point, you're kind of squeezing the Red Bull, Alpine and Aston Martin into a horrible situation where they don't want to yield the position because they know they've got to hold on to it if they want a chance to be able to, keep in the soft tyre train. But you can't fight it too hard, otherwise you're going to just miss out on the DRS train anyway from the cars in front.
It's just a difficult decision to make, really, and it's just difficult to know exactly where to place your car, how to make it all work. But all the drivers coming towards the grid, someone was a long way back there. I think it was Alberto in the Williams, was quite a ways back than the rest of the grid. A few drivers, I think they've overshot it on their grid box, and they've been sent back just a little bit. But they've all lined up right at the back of the field, P20. But we'll have to see just Komi-san can do off of the line. Can Craggies or CJQ try and get back at him as we are waiting to get this one underway. But the 5 red lights are appearing here at Spain. It's round 2 of Season 12 in Tier 2 here in PRL. It's just Komi-san on pole, but the lights are out and we are away. It's a great start for Craggies. He's already alongside and passed down in towards the opening corner here. They're 2x2 on the run towards the first chicane, but Craggy, he has the inside line. Can he control it? Yes, he can. It's going to be the inside line as well for Rapid, but there's a spin. There's a bit of an incident, and they're all concertinaing up. Little bit of contact all the way through the mid-pack, and it's Oliver up to P5 on that medium. Who'd have seen that coming?
Yeah, brilliant opportunistic move there from Oliver to be able to keep out the way of the cars going sideways to find himself jumping up a couple of positions there. And that's certainly going to be something he's going to be able to take on there as we've got more carnage towards the back there. I'm sure that's going to be a safety car. I've seen at least 2-3 cars into the gravel trap there with Crazy I Do It as being one of the victims currently falling down back into 20th. But I feel like we should give mention here to Nobby as well. Started on that soft compound tyre in P20. He's already found himself up into P11 just from avoiding a little bit of carnage.
Yeah, I mean, it's been absolutely crazy stuff. That is going to be Nobby off the track. He started right at the back of the field, gained about 9 positions, but he's going to lose it all once again, and that is not the ideal start. But for Craggies, what a start off of the line, straight through. He had better traction, didn't have as much wheel spin maybe compared to just Komi-san, but these two are starting to get away. I mean, look at the gap back to CJQ. There's a gap there. But there's also a gap behind Rapid OG, so it's starting to form early on, but it's Craggies from just Komi-san from Rapid OG who's going for the move down towards turn 1, maybe using a bit of battery to pull his way through, but a very exciting opening lap, and I think there's a few drivers who are going to be ruining some mistakes there.
Absolutely, but it's one of those, isn't it? You've got to take the opportunities if you see them. If you no longer go for the gap, you're no longer a racing driver, in the good old famous words of Ayrton Senna. And of course, a couple of these drivers went for gaps, and it didn't necessarily pay off, but of course it'll be a learning feature, as we see just Komi-san pushing it really tough there, heading up through turn 4. Clipping one of the Rolex billboards on the side of a track. Thankfully, it doesn't look like they've got any damage from that. But you've got to consider, if they end up pushing this car to, these levels, that car's not going to want to hold on for too much longer, especially if the tyres start getting a little bit under the temperature, let's say, and perhaps might just cause a little bit too much sliding for Komi-san's liking.
Yeah, he won't do that too many times, that's for sure. And he's fallen back towards Rapid OG here, who's got some good pace, as Craggies is away. I mean, DRS, really, the first detection point is 2.5 laps in, and it really, the first proper DRS detection point, when you say that you can really make up some time, is about 3 laps into the race. It takes quite a while for the DRS zones to appear here, as DRS is now enabled on this lap, but it's Rapid OG on the back of just Komi-san. DJQ's been dropped, frankly. I think it's fair to say. It's Polowski now getting through on crew steamers. But like I was saying before, these soft runners who are behind the medium guys, they want to get through quickly, and that's exactly what Polowski is trying to do here, but he's got some time to find on the back of the Red Bull of Oliver.
Yeah, absolutely. Oliver's had a brilliant start to this race, hasn't he? He knows what he's got to do. He knows he's kind of just got to hang on to the back of CJ, use the DRS that is available from this lap looking forward. Kind of got to nurture his tyres just a little bit to make sure he can end up potentially even making a medium to soft compound strategy work, which, we've seen throughout time. Think about the likes of F1 Esports has been a strategy which drivers have tended to kind of go to. Yes, it's going to cost them a little bit on this initial medium stint, but you think, looking slightly further ahead, as long as they're able to keep it in check, they're not pushing the car too hard, they're using a little bit of DRS just to help carry them along so they can take it just a little bit out of tyres heading into the corners. They could be on for a winning strategy here. But we mentioned that Rapid OG certainly has got some pace up towards the front of this field. Yeah,
I mean, just with these tough tyres, I'm just thinking it's either going to be a 2-stop, or as we see Mythbusters spinning around at the penultimate corner, it's either going to be a 2-stop, or I think we're going to see rain at some point. But I just can't see where rain's going to come from. I just don't see why you would take a soft medium strategy here for that many drivers to do it. I think a couple might go for it, but the numbers that we're seeing, I mean, that's 11, that's more than half the grid are on a soft tyre at the moment. Can't see a reason for them to be on it unless they're going for a 2-stop or it's going to rain. I mean, soft medium's possible, but I didn't think it was that obvious for strategy.
No, it's certainly going to be something we're going to have to keep an eye on as well. And those on the medium compound, I mean, they've got the luxury, right? If a safety car comes in towards lap 9, they could easily put on a set of hard tyres and, you know, coax them to the end of a race and keep them quite comfortable throughout the period, which would be used. We see CJ making a very late move, heading into turn 10 there, the Kickser, and of course he's just having to wait a little bit longer. He's on that softer rubber, so you would be able to expect him to find a bit more traction coming out of the corner, but Oliver is doing a fantastic job in that Red Bull, looking very pacey on those medium tyres, but he has fallen out of the DRS range of Komi-san.
He has, and I mean, there's just a lot of things going on here. See, he will be hoping to get through on for once again. I mean, he got overtaken by the Red Bull, who's got some good pace, it seems, on that medium, especially if the race is going to come back to him behind. You just about saw Pelosi get past Crew Steamers as well. So he's through up in 6. CJQ's up into 4. Soft still working, but with every passing lap, they're going to get a little bit more worn. Realistically, compared to the medium, they're going to wear that a little bit more, lose a little bit more time per lap, and we're going to a crossover point. When that is, and whether the guys on the mediums and the hards can really take advantage, as we see Patty Pat on the hards, he's trying to make moves.
Yeah, certainly, and he's got a nice little gang of cars around him to keep him company, but he will have to just keep in mind that Rapid Gopher is on that medium compounder tyre, so he can expect to get challenged into a couple braking zones by Rapid if Rapid decides to push it just a little bit more. But Patty here is doing a fantastic job on the hard compound tyres. So is Shane. Just making sure they're able to hang on to the pack. The squabbling between all the soft and medium compound tyres is helping them to, you know, a brilliant extent here, as we see Patty run it a little bit deep. Maybe getting a little bit scared from Rapid Go Through, of course, and running back a little bit too deep, a little bit too late on the brakes. And we can see that hard compound tyre now being challenged in a duel with the other hard compound tyre of Shane. Shane's able to make that move around the outside. We see CJ and Charles. I see Oliver, and for some reason I think Charles Oliveira. It's not quite there. I see CJ there losing out of position here, and you know, you've got to start considering, if you're one of these two drivers, maybe just calm it down a little bit. The cars in front of you are getting away. Cars behind you are catching up. Maybe just hold position. Maybe rebound off each other using the DRS. You don't need to fight all the time.
Yeah, I think that's what they're trying with the rebound of the DRS. Oliver, but Oliver doesn't really. I think he wants to stay ahead just so that when that soft side starts to drop off, he's in a position to be able to get away rather than being held up. That's collateral. Zoom at the back calls yellow flag. Back on track, shouldn't be causing a safety car. But I mean, the top 3 are in a race on their own at the moment. If we don't get a safety car, which obviously there's ample chance for one, they're the 3 that we're going to be looking at for the win in this race. Maybe Oliver, different strategy, but I mean, these 3, they have so much pace, it seems, in the back of their pocket, but can they just try and get away from each other? I mean, Rapid OG looks like he's got more pace than the other 2 at the moment because he started, but if he can't get through on Craggy, there's nothing he can do about it. But DRS, he's going to have the outside line. Nothing Craggy can do. Rapid into the lead on lap 7.
Bring back the chicane. It helped with racing. You'll never hear it from anyone else in the community, but I'm saying it. I'm going out there. It's too easy to overtake using that DRS, as Rapid OG has shown us right there. But Craggy's, of course, you got to mention, he did start pulling away at the start of his stint. Perhaps he's pushed those tyres a little bit too hard early on, and they've kind of already hit that cliff, and you've got to maybe perhaps think that Rapid OG and Komi have kind of nurtured their tyres a little bit more, but it'll only be a matter of time, maybe 1.5 laps until their tyres start to fall off the cliff, and that could be when we start to see Craggy really trying to bring this attack back to the lights of Rapid OG, and maybe Komi could find a very opportunistic move heading into one of these corners, because we know how much this circuit flows. We mentioned yesterday, it's you know, it's a technical circuit, it's not as flowing as Imola, but again, if you are caught off the racing lane, you will be punished for it, and that's the matter of a fact around this circuit, as I'm sure we're going to see a couple of moves here going off the racing line. It'll be the AlphaTauri darting to the inside of a Williams car there, Halo trying to hold it to the inside of Crazy, but he just doesn't have a grip on that medium compounder tyre yet. He's got to wait maybe 1 or 2 laps more for that soft tyre to really fall off for these drivers.
And they're going to be looking forward to it, aren't they? Guys who aren't on the softs, for the softs to fall off. I mean, Shane and Patty Pat as well, they're really going to be looking forward to anything falling off, because they've got the best tyre in terms of longevity. Here comes Shane, though, on Dom War. He's getting through on a hard compared to a soft. So he's not looking bad at the moment. Of course, started further back after gambling on the softs in qualifying, but he's working his way through nicely. Gaps are forming, but apart from the top 3, they're still relatively close and bunched up at the moment. It's Patty Pat. Is he looking for a move as well on Dom War? Inside line at turn 4. It's bold, it's brave, but it's done, and he's up into the top 11 now. Still trying to keep tabs with his fellow hard runner. Shane.
Absolutely. Once again, microphone, it's not helping your case here, Darragh, but I know exactly what you meant. He is keeping in touch with Shane, and it's fantastic to see that, they are still fighting cars here, there, and everywhere. But again, at the same time, they are kind of working together. They're sieving through this pack in a brilliant manner. Working, not necessarily helping each other, but giving each other the opportunity to follow each other through, understanding that their race isn't necessarily going to be against themselves, it's going to be against these soft compound runners, where the tyres start to fall off, where they start degrading rapidly, and these hard and medium compounds can really start challenging the soft tyres, start, mounting pressure on them, and really getting a good opportunity to make some moves going. As we see Craggy's catching up there, up to a 10th just before the braking zone, and you can already start seeing that these soft compound tyres are sliding just that little bit more through turn 3 rather than what the drivers would necessarily want.
Yeah, I mean, surely looking at a two-step here, these drivers don't want to take these another, 6, 7 laps. I mean, at the end of lap 8, really, you're taking them at least another 7 to try and get to a medium tyres. We see Don Moore spinning around at turn 2, possible contact, but we don't know that. Looking further down, though, I mean, there's some good battles through the field, some few trains as well here with Rapid Gopher on the back of Crazy and Patty Pat. He really has dropped away. Maybe there was contact then between himself and Don Moore, because they were fighting each other last lap, and Patty Pat is now 2 seconds behind Shane, whereas he was in the DRS a lap ago. So it's not ideal for Patty Pat. Got some work to do as either a little bit of lag there or just a slide, but he is starting to gain a little bit away from Crazy on that soft tyre, and he might be safe this lap around when it comes to the DRS.
Yeah, of course, and to think as well, we've gone through this entire broadcast so far without mentioning how punishing the track limits are around here. It goes without saying, we had a little bit of a wet qualifying, the track limits are going to be a little bit more lenient, but now it's dry, these track limits are going to be hard enforced. You step 3 tyres over the white line, boom, slam dunk warning, no ifs, ands or buts. And it can catch a couple of drivers off guard. I know personally it's caught me off guard a fair few times when I've been broadcasting around here, to the point where you would think, surely that's not over the line, surely that's going to get removed. But you have a look back and you see 2 or 3 tyres, especially coming around turn 3 on the exit here, going across that white line, and then, next thing you know, 2 free warnings get picked up and you slammed with a 3-second time penalty, which is exactly what Mythbusters has found down in P16. He's got a little bit more work to do, looking forward to this race. But again, starting on that medium compound tyre, he's got the luxury of picking whether he wants to go for an undercut or an overcut.
Yeah, he can kind of just do what he wants, really. We'll have to see what he does do. But no, you're right about the warnings. I mean, it's not as bad as we all know as the pit entry at Abu Dhabi, which there's some glitch there. That needs to be fixed somehow. But you're right, it can be really easy to pick up warnings, particularly the track like Spain, where on the exit of some of these modes. So there is always that chance that drivers push a little bit harder than they would. I mean, if there was some gravel there, they may, not push as hard and get so close to the white line, particularly around here at turn 3. But because there's so much tarmac on the outside, the drivers will push all they can and maybe just about pick up a warning. But yeah, these 3, they're really just ploughing along on their own at the moment. Oliver's just all on his own in a world of his own in 4th, and then the battles really come in behind. But these top 3, they're the class of the field at the moment, but we're not quite a third of the way through yet.
Yeah, and do you think there's perhaps an opportunity for these guys, Darragh, to maybe get caught up a little bit too much in battling each other? That the likes of Oliver can keep that medium alive that little bit longer. And then if these lot end up squabbling after they end up pitting, or even now, if they all of a sudden stop, following each other in DRS, harvesting a little bit of battery here and there, and they end up trying to properly fight for position, that'll bring the likes of Oliver in. That could even bring the likes of CJ back in. So, yes, they've shown brilliant pace so far, but I wouldn't say it's a shoo-in for these 3 to be in the podium, because at the end of the day, it's sim racing and anything can happen. You've just got to keep an eye out for that checkered flag and make sure that you're, keeping your nose nice and clean, so to say. Especially around a track like Catalunya, where it can be so easy, as I've already said. If you get offline once or twice, you lose a couple of positions, it'll cost you a good handful of time. You're looking in the seconds region, not just for temps, you're looking at seconds to lose out a couple of positions, as we see Paloski there, moving to the inside, heading down into turn 1, getting that move done with the DRS, and CJ falling back down to P6. It's not been a great race for him so far, has it?
No, I think it's fair to say it's not. I mean, he was right in that battle for the front 4, really, in the first few laps, but he's since then dropped back about 10 seconds in about as many laps. really not good for him at the moment, but I think we're going to start to get towards the pit window. Clearly, drivers going for a one-stop on the soft tyre. I'm surprised that they can, really. But I'd presume a soft medium rather than a soft hard, but a soft hard always possible. We'll see what they do. Shane and Patty Pat might be able to extend to go to a soft themselves and be absolutely rapid at the end of the race. But can anyone pick up an undercut? That's going to be the question. Old softs are going to be seconds slower, aren't they, than any form of fresh tyre that anybody goes on. So we'll have to wait and see who goes on to what, and if it's them, gain a few places on the undercut, and whether they can hold those off when the drivers behind have fresh tyres. Rapids in the pit lane then. That's well timed. Lap 11 though. That's early. Lap 12. It's early, I'd say.
5-second penalty speeding in the pit lane. That's not going to help his chances at winning this race. I know I mentioned that, if anything happens, Oliver's right there to pick up on it, but I wasn't expecting it to be so quick, and of course he's gone over to the medium compound tyre looking to make this one-stop work a treat, and of course we're going to start seeing the medium tyre compound runners now. They understand their window, when to push. You can see a couple drivers from that soft compound diving it into the pits. This is where the medium compound tyres really have to start pushing and make up that little bit of gap, which they might have let build over the last couple laps. This is their time to push those mediums, push the hards to, the next level. Make sure they're keeping within the track bounds, though. That's going to be critical throughout this race, and it'll certainly be something that I'm sure a couple of these drivers which are coming out on the hard compound tyre and on the medium compound tyre might not necessarily be too prepared for. The grip difference between them, it might not look like much if you're talking 7 tenths over the course of a lap, but you've got to think being able to carry that much more speed into a corner can definitely disrupt you, especially on a muscle memory sort of segment. If you're not necessarily prepped to do medium or hard tyre running, as we've got a safety car.
You do.
Wow.
And that's not worked out well at all for Rapid OG, has it there?
No.
As everyone will dive in now, Craggy and Gomez, but it's difficult now. I guess the medium runners will go hard to the end here.
Yeah.
That would make sense. But it kind of takes away that advantage that Shane and Patty could try to get. The medium's going to get to the end. It's going to be tough. I mean, even with this safety car coming in, you'd have to say it's going to come in at the end of, lap 16? So you're still going to have to do 17 laps of racing on those softs. Patty's got a time penalty coming into the pit lane there. That's not ideal, but absolutely everyone in their gran that's come into the pit lane. Mediums and hards are going to go on. Another safety car. What's going to go to the end, I think.
I mean, realistically, it's looking that way. It looks like everyone should be able to drag their tyres to the end of a race, but the exception being Shane, who's put on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. That's brave. It might have been a mistake, but it's certainly brave.
Well, it's interesting, actually, because you could try and go soft, and, the age-old saying, mainly in IndyCar, cautions breed cautions, but here, safety cars will create safety cars. So we'll have to, if there's another safety car here, Shane might be able to then gain a few positions on this restart, and then pit again, have the fresh tyres. We'll see what he can do. I mean, it's always possible that this strategy could work out very well. We saw different strategies work last night in Tier 1, those intermediate tyres. There were only 2 of them at the end of the safety car, but they pulled 12 seconds. It was drying at the end, but it was working for a time. So we'll have to see how this works out. But Rapid OG will lead us away. That 5-second time penalty, though, it's going to kill him, really, isn't it, by the end of this race? Yeah,
it's certainly not going to help him in any manner. But of course, you got to realise as well, stewards could take a look at it and maybe decide it was a game-breaking bug. We've seen it before. Let's be honest. We saw it in PSGL F1 game-breaking bug. It's been aware. It is one of these features of the F1 games. But Rapid here, I'm sure he won't necessarily be caring too much about it. He's just going to be looking to get his head down and continue on with the race because he's shown he's got pace. But when you've got the drivers with the quality of Comey-san and Craggy's behind him, you've really got to consider, what could his next steps be? Because if he dumps his battery, Comey-san and Craggy's, they've shown they've got the pace, they've got the intellectual awareness, they've got the race IQ to be able to deploy the battery to match him, to keep hold of him, to make sure he can't escape the DRS so he can't build up a gap. It really puts him in an awkward position.
And I mean, these are all things you've got to think about. I mean, it's difficult with the strategy as well, particularly as these guys at the front on the mediums. I think they're going to struggle a bit more by the end of the race, definitely, than the hard runners. And if the likes of Craggy's can stick in with Comey-san and Rapid OG, he's going to have the advantage at the end of this race. ERS management is also, of course, key. So they're going to have to think about how they do that. But, of course, their batteries boosted back up to 100% during this safety car by going that much slower. Mythbusters should hopefully catch by the end of this lap. and we'll get going. We'll get some racing underway. Lap 15 ending of it. So, 18 laps to the flag. Hopefully, we'll get a green flag racing.
Yeah, and you've got to think as well, these drivers which have gone to the hard compound tyre, yes, they'll be slower off the initial safety car restart, but when it comes towards the end of the stint, that's when they'll have a clear pace advantage over those on the medium tyres. So maybe Rapid and Kobe could maybe structure some sort of plan, maybe a little bit of weaving on the straight, just to make sure they're in agreement to work together, to make sure they can try and build a buffer to the likes of Craggies and Oliver down in P3 and P4, because surely they're going to have to somewhat think of some sort of plan to make sure they're able to hold off these hard compound tyre runners towards the end of the race. They'll have an abundance more pace, they'll be looking aggressive, and they'll certainly be looking to make moves, but the safety car will be in at the end of this lap, Darragh.
Yes, it will. This is going to get nice and tasty, I think it's fair to say, and we're going to have to see who's going to pull this one off the best, who's pulling off the strategy, the ERS management, everything that goes with that, and who pulls off the moves the best to try and win this race. I can't imagine that Rapid OG is going to go all the way to the end in the lead of this one, and even if he does, if others stick within his 5 second, they're going to pick up the win. So lots to tell in the closing, in the second half of this race, plus just a little bit. But when does Rapid go? It looks like he's already gone, but he's going relatively quickly, but not quite quick enough to say that he's absolutely dropped the hammer. But does he go now? Yes, there he goes out of the final corner, and we're back racing here in Spain. Just Dan, though, has not let him get away by any stretch of the imagination as they run down towards turn 1. But Craggies has come through. I'm not too sure if that was a giving back a position there, because Komi-san and Craggies had a bit of an issue at turn 4 last lap. But either way, Craggies up to P2, Komi-san down to P3, and there's some moves through the field, but it's Rapid OG leading the way.
Absolutely. I want to keep an eye on Beast here in the Ferrari car. He's looking to try and swing it around the outside of the Aston Martin. Is he going to be able to pull it off? Both of them on equal hard compound tyres. Squeezed the Aston Martin into the apex. And a brilliant move there from a Ferrari driver. Find himself up into P5, trying to hunt down Oliver in P4, but you've got to think with Oliver's pace he's shown so far, this will surely be one of his opportunities where if he's able to hold on to the back of Komi-san during the start of this second half of a race, he should surely find himself in a brilliant position to capitalise on that 5-second time penalty Rapid OG finds himself currently having, as we've got a yellow flag there slightly further down the field. I do believe that'll be down to the Haas car in P16. Donwar and Alfredo towards the back of the grid having a little instant there.
Yeah, having a little, not too sure why or what happened, but yeah, not ideal for him. But let's see. Nobby, he's had a bit of a down race. He is on these mediums, just trying to make moves through the field. No one has really been able to get away here. They're still the train all the way down from 1st to 15th, with the only break being Mythbusters. But look at this, Shane on that soft. Talk about how he needs to make moves quickly. He won. He's making 2. It's a double overtake down into turn 1. If he can pull this one off, his teammate's still around the outside, just about keeping it on the track, I think. But McShane up to P5 now. And this soft really is working off the restart.
Absolutely. Buy one, get one free on the Aston Martin and his teammate as well. I'm sure Beast didn't necessarily want to put up too much more of a fight there, but Shane finds himself up into P5, and now he's got to be able to put the hammer down on these fresh soft compound tyres while he's got that pace advantage over the likes of Oliver, Kobe, Craggies and Rapid OG to see where he can find himself. And maybe a little bit of fortune as well, maybe looking for another safety car so he'll lose out a little bit more time to dive it back into the pits. Maybe to go on mediums or maybe even on softs once again, depending on how far is left in this race. But we're seeing battles break out through the entire grid. We've got Alberto here under pressure from Patty Pat, the Alpine driver, looking to hang it around the outside on that medium compounded tyre, but once again he's just gone back a little bit too deep and he can't quite seem to match that braking point, can he, down into turn 10?
Yeah, he can't really do it, but look inside here for Alberto through this flying penultimate corner. He gets the move done on Cruise Steamers, but he's not going to have any kind of DRS advantage. You believe that has just been enabled. Let's see though, Craggies, the back of just Komi-san, who's got through to P2 as DRS is now enabled for use next time around. Rapid OG starting to get away a little bit. So right here, CQ. Not a mouthful. Through on Crazy Idiot. Yes, he is. Just about as Nobby is going to try and follow him through as well. Around the outside at turn 3. That'd be brave. That'd be bold. But I think he's going to do it. A little bit of ERS usage is going to see him pull in front. What a move there from the Red Bull driver up to P11. But it's some frantic action at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. You've got to feel sorry for the Williams of Crazy. Gone offline once or twice, and all of a sudden he looks like he's been absolutely swarmed by everyone. But we've got Don Moore out of this race, and it's another safety car. Dare I say, it's exactly what Shane would have needed.
Absolutely. He can probably go to... I'd go medium here.
Yes.
If I was Shane. I wouldn't risk it. But how many people dive into the pit lane for a medium if they've got a fresh set? We will have to wait and see, but Rapid's in the driving seats. Can try and get that 5-second taken off in the pit stop if he takes one, and then he doesn't have to worry about it for the rest of the race, but it will drop him back a fair few positions. But yeah, second car of the race as Rapid does come in. How many follow? Craggy stays out.
Yes, I feel like it might be all the hard compound runners who choose to hold it out on this grid here, but, you know, you give them that situation. Do you want to pit for fresh mediums instead of the hard tyres, which will comfortably make it to the end of a race? I would still say yes, you would want to go onto a fresh set of mediums if it's available. But of course, a lot of these drivers would have already ran the mediums on their first stint.
I mean, yeah, that is very true. But of course, there were so many soft run as well. So, probably have 2 sets of fresh mediums if they didn't use it in qualifying. But either way, the top hitter just going to be sound in 10th. Of the 17 drivers left, 9 stayed out, 8 pitted. So pretty much a 50-50. And those guys further back, the likes of just Comey Sound and Shane, they're going to be really trying to get through towards the front as quickly as they can. Rapid OG, they're a bit of a fall from grace. And 13th, going to go from leading this train on a restart to not really being able to see the front of it.
But you've got to think, you know, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Yes, you're sacrificing track position now, but you will have a quicker tyres, you will have more pace. And I feel like that pace is going to be ever so evident with the likes of Alfredo on 5-lap-old medium tyres. Yes, 5 laps, it's not long, realistically, is it? It's about 6.5 minutes extra time on track with these medium tyres, but it will play so much of a difference into their pace. You'll notice Kobe-san's going to get a much better launch off the safety car restart, much better braking into turn 1, because there's so much more grip on that fresh medium rubber in comparison to slightly worn medium tyres or even slightly worn hard tyres. So it'll certainly be something to keep an eye on for the safety car restart, but we will have most of the drivers catching back up to the pack, so we should be able to get going racing once again once the safety car comes around for another lap here. You got to think as well, those drivers who decided to battery dump to try and get a couple positions here and there, they would have gained a little bit too.
Yeah, they definitely would have gained a little bit, but Rapid Gopher into the pit lane. Interesting. He may have looked at that and gone, maybe the mediums are better. And he's going to come in and I presumably fit a medium compound, maybe a soft, let's see. Wait for him to change the tyre. It is a medium there. So we'll see how he fares, but he's going to start right at the back of the field. But you're going to have to say, I mean, the guys on the hards at the moment, or even just the likes of Nobby, Ploski, Alfredo, they're going to be really risked from a lot of these guys coming through. And with it being a rhythm track, once you're offline, it's difficult to get back onto the racing line. And if there's 2 or 3 cars there already, it's going to be impossible. You're going to lose position. Yeah,
it's going to be a brave strategy call for these guys to stick it out with a medium tyre. I wouldn't fancy being in their shoes. Perhaps, you know... It's a shame safety car's not going for another lap, because I would really encourage him to dive into the pits to make sure they've got the freshest mediums on track. But again, everyone's all bunched up behind the safety car, so we could be looking to resume at the end of this lap, and it's looking more than likely that we will. And then you've got to take that into consideration. How much battery are they going to be willing to burn to make sure they can defend the position from the likes of Komi-san, Shane, Alberta, Rapid, Crazy, Patty Pat, Mythbusters, Halo, and Gopher, all behind them on fresher mediums. It's going to be certainly a long race for these drivers. Oh.
Yes.
Okay, right, just checking you there. Just checking you there.
No, that's all right. Sorry, no, I heard it drop out for a second there. It's been all right for the last few minutes. But, yeah, it dropped out there, and I didn't know if you'd stopped talking. Ended your point or mine. But either way, safety car's coming in. Craggy will lead us away. But the battling is going to be in behind. The likes of just Komi-san, Shane, they are going to be trying to fly through the order. The fresher, softer compound of tyres to the top 5. We'll have to see how this Craggy, though, he's going to have 13 laps to try and run away with this win. If he can, don't count out another safety car. But Craggy, he's gone. He has caught Oliver more than napping. Oliver is having a siesta here and 8/10ths back. And Craggy's will lead us definitely down in towards turn 1. But look at how close the gaps are in behind. It's about a 10th. 2/10ths in the race for 9th, 10th, 11th.
Absolutely, and Nobby here is going to be looking to make a move. Still showing those medium tyres have got a bit of pace, but he's ended up clipping a rear tyre, and he's round. That's very unfortunate there for Red Bull driver, but you've got to consider a couple more of these drivers are looking to make moves, and Shane is certainly one of those drivers. He seems to have got past Komi-san, looking up towards the back of Alfredo here as well. A slight little nudge to the inside there, and he's been able to find the space, getting that overtake sorted. And then, of course, it'll be down to Komi-san to try and make the move on the Aston Martin, but he just didn't seem confident, did he? To be able to try and stick his car around the outside of Alfredo, so he's going to get a couple corners stuck behind this Aston Martin car, just having to wait while he watches. Probably one of his rivals for this race win here, looking to close up to the rest of the field on the older tyres. And of course, Shane here is going to keep his head down, but we do have Komi-san there losing his entire front wing. I believe he got caught up behind Alfredo there, carried a little bit too much speed and ended up clipping him, and then knocked himself into the wall.
Yeah, no, I saw, I think, just on one of the cameras, there was a very brief shot. Oh, let's see, McShane to the inside. This is on CJQ. We had a very poor exit out of turn 10, I think. No, but we saw just Komi-san. I didn't know was at the time, but it ends up being just, there was just a hint of a car going right off of the screen where the car shouldn't really be going. And yeah, it turns out that just Komi-san's put himself into the wall and he's having to fix that front wing. Shane, though, he is the man on the move. Look at him, inside line here on Poloski at turn 1. He's got inside line for turn 2, but it'll make the inside line for turn 3. He's already got the move done. He can try and march on, but he's gained so many positions. Last 2 safety car restarts. Man on a mission. Here he comes for CJQ. On the inside of turn 4, it gets tight. It gets very tight. But on the exit, Shane's through up into P5. And he's now chasing after the 4 all on hards.
Brave, bold, and confident are the words which come to mind when watching Shane make those overtakes. He knew exactly what to do. He knew how to place his car. He knew how to get the better runs out the corners. He's done exactly that. And he's looking now to crack down on those hard compound tyres in front of him. And if CJ's anything to go by, he might have a fantastic opportunity here to go ahead and potentially even lead this race before we reach that lap 30 mark. But you do have to consider how much of his battery is he burning in comparison to those hard tyre runners. But you can already see, look at that delta time. It's already shot down to 1.4 seconds as we've seen Alfredo there have a little slide. That'll give Pat the opportunity to take it around the outside. And Crazy I Do It now. He's going to be looking, try and make a move, but he's just had to back out there. But you can see Alfredo really struggling for grip on that medium compound of tyre. We're going to see the Williams now surely make a move towards the inside, and the Haas following suit as well. Perhaps could go for a free wide moment heading down into turn 1. But the Haas car decides better of it. He decides to take it 2x2. And I'm sure the Haas car isn't necessarily looking to race his teammate of Mythbusters, but Mythbusters doesn't want to wait behind these lot any longer, does he? He's looking to make a move here, there, and everywhere. But Shane has already dropped Poloski there. Looking forward to this 1.2 seconds now, up to the back of Crew Steamers. It's inevitable. Darragh, I just feel it. It's inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, he started in the back of the grid, didn't he? Because he tried that soft tyre, didn't he, in qualifying? I think he started down near P16, P17. But as it is, he is really, I'd say, one of the best positions to try and take the win here. He's got to try and get the moves done early, though. He's got to try and make sure that he can use the tyre advantage. Well, he has it, but look at this, side by side. Patty Pat on the inside line in towards turn 10. He made... Someone went very, very wide, and that's Rapid Gopher going off the track and into the gravel. But Pat making the move for P8. He's on the back of CJQ, and he's now the second driver on this new, fresh medium. So we'll see how far he can get up to the likes of CJQ, because he's going to be able to get through on Poloski, I'm sure, with this DRS down towards turn 1. But yeah, look at this beast for P2. There are moves everywhere. Patty Pat making the move for P7, and I think he's got P... Well, double overtake for him, as there are cars everywhere down in towards turn 1, but Patty Pat moves in a sector and a half, and he's charging after the top 5 now. Yes, brilliant stuff there from the Alpine driver, making his way up into P6. Now he's got to keep his head down and keep pushing, as we see one of the Mercedes there taking a slightly wider line coming through turn 3 than he would have necessarily liked. And that's going to give Mythbusters an opportunity to stick it back up the inside on that fresher medium tyre. And as I mentioned in that safety car restart, these fresher mediums have an ample worth more pace. It's almost a joke at this point in comparison to those on the 10-lap-old medium tyres, as we're going to start seeing Rapid OG here looking to maybe get a little bit of redemption and try and get a move sorted on Poloski heading up here into turn 10. The Kixer, it's a very fast-flowing corner since it's been reopened, and you do have this little squirm of DRS, so to say, to be able to try and make a move, as we see the Williams car slightly up ahead, battling tooth and nail for that P8 position. Alberto and Crazy going side by side throughout this entire complex. That's going to help the likes of Rapid, Myth and Pelos all just slightly pull themselves further in this order. But while all this has been going on, we've got a little bit of an update with Shane here in the Ferrari, currently P5. He's within DRS now. He is, but Craggy's was nearly overtaken by Beast down in towards turn 1 there. We've got battles further back as well, with time penalty. The two Williams side by side as they run through turn 3. Oh, there's an incident back there. That's CJQ. I think that was Mythbusters. Yes, it is. Facing the wall at turn 3. Almost Roman Grosjean-esque. And Hulkenberg and Gasly, wasn't it, in 2018? Yes. It had a big collision down there, but they're not going to be too pleased. But it's allowed the likes of Rapid OG back up into P9. SSR Halo's now 11th. A few guys sneaking their way to the back end of the top 10. But Shane, he snuck his way to the back of this group for 4. And is he going to try and make a move down into turn? Yes, he is. Inside line. Can he make this one stick on Cruise? He's got the inside line. He's controlled it. He's got P4. He's after the podium.
Yes, absolutely. It looks like he's got a brilliant show of pace here, hasn't he, on these fresher mediums in comparison to hold our tyres, but you've got to start maybe bringing into question how long can these mediums go at this pace, because he's pushing them to an extreme belief here. If they're going to end up falling off that cliff face and the hard tyres are still wearing themselves down, still showing a little bit more pace. You can see the red light flashing, just showing us how much he's really pushing. As we see Beast once again looking to make the move on Craggy's, but of course that'll give Oliver a brilliant opportunity here to potentially look for a switchback. He's unable to make it work this time, but someone who is able to make it work is going to be Shane, looking to try and hang it around the outside of Renault there. Brilliant move from Shane. Oliver is still towards the inside, a little bit of contact. Oliver's ran it a little bit wide, and then all of a sudden you've got to start thinking, was he a little bit too desperate to make that move? Because all of a sudden Crew Steamers has steamed himself back up into P4, and now you've got the likes of Patty Pat, which isn't too far behind either, only 2 seconds back from Shane. He's got to keep himself honest here.
And I think Patty Pat's really going to start to kick himself with that 3-second time penalty in a while, because it's going to cost him, I think, maybe a chance to the top 5 here, unless these guys come to blows further up, which is absolutely possible. Oh, Crew Steam is getting all out of shape. Oliver needing to get back inside that RS window if he can, but it looks like a futile attempt. But is it? He's gaining through the turn 11. Can he get it down in towards turn 12? No. He's not going to have the DRS down in towards the opening couple of corners. Crew Steamers is going to have a very, very good run, and that red light is flashing on the back of Shane's car, which means he might have a bit of a tough time getting through here. But look at the pace advantage. He's going to fly through. Shane back up to P4. It shows how important the DRS is, but you got to get back inside it now, otherwise Craggy and Beast are going to run away.
Absolutely, and with the pace they've shown as well. Yes, they had a little bit of squabbling, but I'm sure they can put that aside for maybe 3-4 laps here, just to make sure that they can create a safe buffer back to Crew and back to Shane here in P3, because you can start seeing that gap opening up once again. 1.3 seconds, reaching 1.4. That gap seems to be slowly growing, heading through that first sector, but then again it's coming back down in the middle sector, and then it ends up growing again as soon as they reach turn 10, through 11, 12, 13, and then of course back down to that main straight. But Crew Steamers here, you can tell he's really starting to push with Aston Martin. He knows the pressure's on him from behind from the Ferrari. He knows he's got to catch up to the Ferrari in front of him. He's in a Scuderia sandwich at the minute, and it's not a place any driver in the world would want to be between both of these teams. I mean, it's certainly going to be a challenge for Crew Steamers to kind of keep himself level-headed here, knowing the driver on quicker tyres is behind you, knowing you don't have the DRS to help defend either. But we mentioned that Beast almost fell without DRS as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be careful, really, hasn't he, as we run our way through now. There's not many laps to go. I think it's only 6 as Shane, up into P3. He's still in that hunt, maybe for the win. No DRS in the car. And he's got to be careful about that crossover period for the hards and the mediums. But he's still got 5-lap fresher tyres. He should still have more pace than the top 2. Can he be the one back inside the DRS and drag with him? Patty Pat as well. He's in this battle for P4, but the penalty, a bit like a handcuff for him. He can't really move forward, even if he makes the positions on track, because he's going to lose the positions when the race ends. Anyway, but Craggy and Beast, they've been so good, so consistent. But Shane, he's the guy who's trying to upset these two at the front. But Craggy himself is nearly pulling the second clear of Beast on his own.
Exactly, you've got to start maybe considering that Beast has kind of reduced his pace to try and get Shane a little helping of DRS. Depends on how much these drivers are working together. Of course, we do have a bunch of drivers all communicating within the channel, having a little chat. Of course, they like to race, they're competitive, but they are still friends at the end of the day, and that's one of the key features at PRL. Everyone works together. Apparently, it's a Ferrari bread sandwich, not a Ferrari sandwich. My bad. Sorry, Zach. I like to call it a Ferrari sandwich when we've got the bread. I'll quite often put anything in the middle of bread and call it a sandwich of whatever the bread's made out of. And Patty Pat is certainly looking to add a bit of bread onto his contract at the end of the day. Doing a brilliant job for the Alpine team there, hopping up into P4. Brilliant work from him.
Yeah, and Cruz Steamers and Oliver are still left to be swinging amongst themselves. They've got Rapid, Crazy, and Alberto really starting to gain onto the back of them. So they've got to be careful. 4 and a bit laps to go, though. It's ticking away, this race. And Shane, he's still on the hunt for P2. He's closer to Beast than Beast is to Craggy. And if I was down at Ferrari, you might think about trying to make a bit of a strategy call here, because Shane looks fast. Maybe he could be the one to get through on Craggy. Do they try and play ball with each other at this point, do you think, Josh, or are they just going to go for it hammer and tong?
I would certainly hope so. I'd hope they'd be able to understand the position they're in. They could potentially see themselves with a 1-2, depending on how quickly Shane could catch up to the back of Craggy's and maybe start backing Craggy's up into Beast as well. There is a lot to be won from it. But again, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? There's a lot to be lost from it as well. If Shane isn't able to catch back up, would he be happy to relinquish that position back to Beast for P2? A lot which goes into this, but Beast has picked up a 3-second time penalty. So I feel like that's Ferrari's decision already made for him with a position switch, and I'm sure we're about to see it here as we see Shane taking that inside line, going off the racing line, using that DRS to help get that pass sorted on Beast. Now he's got to keep his head down and slowly start reeling in Craggy, but he can't take too long because there's only 3 laps remaining of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, he had an awful run through the opening sector there. Like, Beast over the back of him. Shane lost about half a sec through there on the race leader. So Craggy starting to run away. 3.5 laps to go now. Really is starting to fade this race. We'll have to see if anyone can make race moves. Particularly, you'd say P4. Crew Steamers is currently, or even P3, because Beast and Patty with those time penalties bring in the likes of Crew Steamers, Oliver, Rapid, Crazy, Alberto, all for a podium here. Because whoever finishes 5th on track at the moment, take P3 on the penalties.
Absolutely, there's still a lot to gain for these drivers. Currently fighting for P5, it would be a lot to gain regardless, as we see a very late move there from the Sauber car, tapping the back of the Red Bull of Oliver there. Rapid OG, once again, just getting caught up there, being a little bit too desperate to try and make a move. He hasn't overtook the Red Bull car, so I'm sure the stewards might take that into consideration there, but of course it would have lost him time, and Crew Steamers now doesn't have the pressure of a car in DRS behind him. That'll certainly go a long way into maybe even considering him jumping up into P3 in the race results here, with the penalties included, as we're seeing more battles breaking out across the track. We've got Rapid OG there looking to make a move on the Red Bull, does so down to the inside. Brilliant work there on those fresher medium tyres. It's looking good so far for the Sauber driver, but how much is he going to be able to close up to Crew Steamers, as we see Alberto now making an opportunity where it could potentially be a little risky to go to the inside, and he decides to back out and wait for another day. Oliver, just by the skin of his teeth here, hanging on to P7.
Yes, the fact that Rapid here could still try and himself a podium is incredible, because he was down in 13, wasn't he, on the restart after leading the previous restart. If he can get himself back to a podium position, that'd be an incredible effort, but he's got to overtake Crew Steamers. He's got to get into that DRS and make the move, and that's not going to be an easy thing if he has to fight off Oliver down into turn 1 on the penultimate lap. But there is only 2 laps to go now, with Craggy coming in towards the penultimate corner now. He's got a 1.9 second advantage, and it is looking quite difficult for the McLaren driver at the moment to try and pick up maximum points in this race 2 of 10 in the season. So good to get the points on the board early on, but he's just got to make sure he keeps it within the white lines, doesn't do anything, doesn't make a little bit of a mistake, and bring it home for him and the team. But these 2 Ferrari drivers still close together. Just a shame that Beast has that penalty, really.
Yeah, you are noticing them using that DRS to their advantage. They're slowly trying to extend the gap to P4. Patty Pat as well, who does have that time penalty. Could potentially maybe even see him working together just a little bit more. Perhaps letting Beast go past, and then Shane trying to hold up the rest of the field. It would be a very risky play for the Ferrari team to work out. But, of course, you would have to consider it. I'm sure they've probably ran the numbers for it, deemed it not necessarily worth it, in case there is a chance of contact slightly further down the field. But we've got Rapid OG absolutely smashing out these lap times on this medium compounded tyre, and he's right up behind Crew Steamers now. With 1 lap to go, this is surely going to be his opportunity to deploy the battery heading down into turn 1 for the final time of this race.
It is, but something that we haven't really talked about is Crew Steamers' time. He's now 3-4 seconds behind Beast, so Rapid's got to have to gain that much more time as well, just to get himself back into the 3-second window of the Ferrari. But he should be able to come through down to 1. It's just going to have to be whether he can gain enough on the final laps to merit himself picking up a podium. But let's see. Rapid OG trying to make the move for at least P5. He's going to the outside line. No, he's not the inside line. Bit of a late move, but he's got it done. A little bit of contact as they rub wheels down into his turn 1, but Rapid is ahead. He's up into P5. How close can he get to trying to pick up a podium here? The gap is 3.2. 1 lap to go. He's got to find some time.
Absolutely, but you've got to maybe take into consideration here that considering where he's come from, after that poor timing of a safety car for the first pit stop, I don't feel like he could be too disheartened with a potential P4 here. Still on the cards, but of course he would love to be able to jump up into P3, but that's all down to Beast. As we see, Pat has now closed up back within DRS. It might be a little bit too late for the Alpine driver to really try and catch back up to the rear of Beast, but again, we've got these drivers in a DRS train. It's been a common theme so far through yesterday and today as well. But realistically, only one driver has been able to keep themselves completely clean, understand exactly what they need to do, and hang it out on the old hard compound tyre. And of course, that'll be PLR Craggy here, coming through the final corner to pick up a well-deserved victory here for round 2 of PRL Tier 2. And what a way to finish it.
Yeah, and Craggy then wins here at Spain. Fantastic result for him and the team. Shane picks up P2 and Rapid just about pips Beast by a 1/10 of a second to pick up the final podium position. A Herculean effort, really, in the second half of that race to find himself onto the podium, and he's just about done it. Beast 4th, Patty 5th with that time penalty. It's not too bad, losing just the 1 position in the end, with Crew Steamers in 6th. Alberto, Halo, Oliver and Crazy picking up the last points position, with Alfredo quite a ways back on that train. Rapid go for P12. Pelowski's going to the pit lane and sped. I'm not too sure how or why, but should still pick up 13th. And it should be Mythbusters in P14. Let's see. Yes, it is. And it'll be CJQ after that really poor start to the race. He won't have enjoyed it. He'll finish P15. But Craggy's got, I mean, what a race from him, really. He didn't look too much under pressure in the last 10, 12 laps. But a dominant drive in the end and full points for him.
Absolutely, and it's what I was on about with these McLaren drivers. They are very, very quick. They didn't get a rub of the green. But I was about to ask you who your driver of the day is, but I've got to agree with Shane, to be honest with you. The way he was able to pull off those moves when necessary, being brave enough to go onto that soft compound tyre, gambling on another call for the safety car, and it worked out to his advantage. And he got a well-deserved P2 at the end of the day, so for me, he's my driver of the day. But Darragh, who's yours?
Ooh, I think I'm going to have to go for Rapid, because I think he made a bit of a mistake maybe on the but he did come back at some great pace and a podium. Very well deserved in the end and made moves right at the end and just about got it. A bit like Lando Norris style, wasn't it, at Austria 2020?
Yes. When
he just snuck in that penalty window of Lewis Hamilton. You just feel like a similar experience for him. But great result for him and the team all the way through, and Ferrari particularly, double or 2nd and 4th for them. They're going to be very, very pleased. But here are your results then. For round 2 here, it was Craggy, the Scotsman, who wins here from P2 on the grid. Shane, actually, I forgot about Shane, really, because he started P17.
Yeah, dynamite performance.
P2. I know, exactly. It was a fantastic, you kind of felt about it second half of the race because he was there the whole time, but yeah, fantastic strategy from him to put himself up in P2. Rapid in the Alfa Romeo, up in P3 with Beast in P4. Patty Pat, another good with P5, with Crew Steamers and Alberto in 6th. Halo, Oliver and Crazy round out the top 10, with Alfredo a little bit further back. Gopher in 12th, with Pelowski, the Canadian, in 13th. Mythbusters and CJ, the other 2 finishers, in 15th, with just Komi-san, the pole sitter, not seeing the flag, even though he did set the fastest lap, along with Nobby, Donwar, Monster and Collateral Zoom. You all didn't have the best of races, didn't pick up any points, and they, I think, slightly heartened with that one. Once again, I don't see anybody has jumped into the podium interview channel, so I think we can just have a look at the calendar and tell you all that next week we are not going far. We're hopping across the Iberian Peninsula to Portugal, Portimao, and the Algarve for round 3. And Josh, Portimao, it's a difficult challenge. Lots of flowing corners, much of a roller coaster, but we're going to have to see who comes out on top there, aren't we?
Absolutely. Back in my domain of GT3 tracks, Portimao was one of my favourites to be able to race on in the GT3 cars. It was absolutely fantastic. I loved every minute of it. Not a big fan of it driving in the F1 cars. I feel like it's a little too challenging, especially given some of the traction zones there as well. A couple of the bumps aren't necessarily friendly. Thinking about that final corner as well, how much of a pain it can be for these drivers. But if we've got anything to take away from this, is they don't mind going out a fast-flowing final corner down to a DRS straight, looking to make an overtake into turn 1. So it should hopefully bring some very exciting racing forward to next week as well. But again, we will have to wait until next week to see it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're going to have to see if the championship leaders can extend their lead or whether some other drivers can try and get in on the act. But from myself, Darragh, Thacker, and from Josh, Griffin, Meek in the commentary booth alongside me, we thank you all. We thank you all for chatting in both the YouTube chat and the Twitch chat, getting yourself engaged and for racing along as well. We'll see you next week in Portugal when we return for round 3. And we will see you next week when PRL returns for round 3 at Portugal.
Until then, goodbye.